Welcome. This is Drop Culture. We are going to talk about some of the biggest launches and loyalty moves behind big brands, and we are going to talk about the brains, the people who are behind the scenes who have made it happen. And today we are going to talk about someone really special. I know you've all read about Lionel Messi's big move into Miami, and when he launched his brand Merc, it got sold out in seconds. And today we are going to talk to the person who was behind the scenes, and he's gonna kind of give us a sneak peek about what happened behind the scenes, how much of a big news it was when the launch happened. Did he ever even know how to plan for such moments, because these things don't really happen with a big news ahead of time. So we're gonna learn more about it, and let's jump right into it. All right, today I've got Andrew Weaver, and he's the guy behind FC Dallas and Soccer 90. He has done everything from their e-com to store to, I don't know, retention to performance marketing, everything in between. He's been one guy who's been running the show for probably more than 5 years there. And we all know that when Messi came into Miami, you guys basically took the lead on that, made an exclusive launch of their jersey, and I think that was a huge moment, and that's all that we know from our end. But there is obviously more to that story, and that's more of what I think I know about it from as just a fan who sits behind the screen and then watches the whole thing. But I'm sure there is more to your story, and there is more to your intro too. We would love if you can introduce yourself and share a bit about how it all started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for asking me to kind of talk about some of this. The My experience with FC Dallas, which I've recently moved on, and of course, I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But my experience with FC Dallas was primarily on their merchandise side, so their marketing of their merchandise, and then also managing their e-commerce and some of the branding involved, brand management involved with Soccer 90, which is a store inside Toyota Stadium where they play next door to the National Soccer Hall of Fame. And it's really it's a soccer store, but it's not your typical. It's not even a team store, FC Dallas team store at all. It carries all sorts of other products, teams such as the U.S. national team, other national teams, uh, Premier League, Serie A, whatever soccer teams you've got a lot of jerseys and things like that there, and merchandise there. And one of the things that they carried was all of the MLS soccer teams as well, those brands. So for the last 6 years, that's really what I was managing and working on. And with the Messi piece that you were talking about, we had already had Inter Miami jerseys, a few that were there before he ever came along, and we were already carrying that particular brand. What was interesting about that, and I think what you guys are kind of interested in on the back end of how that works, is it was really I want to say he came in June of that year of 23, and sometime in the winter before that, I want to say December, but it might have been November. But before that, there had already been a lot of rumors that he was talking to Beckham. That there were possibility that once his contract was up at the end of the year with PSG, that he would move to MLS, and Inter Miami seemed like the one that was going to make the most sense. And so there was already all those rumors out there and things like that. And we had come across the ability to purchase some more Inter Miami jerseys for that season coming up. And the jersey, which was I think the pink jersey that they had, was the one that they would be wearing, that home jersey through that season. So we went ahead and we ended up kind of taking a gamble, not kind of literally taking a gamble, and bought quite a bit more jerseys, and just kind of thought, well, my thinking was, at least my reasoning was, we'll do this. We can still, at least with our e-commerce and with our marketing of the brand, we can target, the Miami area, things like that. And we just kind of really hit it heavy with Miami merch if he doesn't show up. And that was kind of my thinking, although I was concerned. It was like any gamble that you may take on that. I was a little bit concerned that we'd make it happen, but that was kind of the thinking, was worst case scenario, we'll be able to move these jerseys, but we'll just have to really set up some campaigns that targets their fans, or specifically in those particular regions. And so that's kind of what we were thinking on that. The in-store piece for Miami, for others being located in Frisco and in the stadium where FC Dallas is quite honestly not that big typically for an MLS team. Outside of that, we sell almost all of those, or did sell almost all of those online through e-commerce. So that was kind of the plan. So the thinking there was, we'll bring these in. If he shows up, we'll move him. No big deal. But if he doesn't, then we've got hopefully a backup plan that will work. So we started getting a bit later, down into May, and I kind of remember thinking in the back of my mind, man, we've got all these Miami jerseys, you know. So I was a little bit concerned about it. But as the news began to break, I think Fab was one of the first ones that kind of indicated, hey, he's going to be doing an interview from Spain, and in it, the hint was pretty strong that he's going to be announcing that he's going to Miami. So I saw that morning and got a hold of one of my guys that was there and said, hey, grab Miami jersey, put Messi on the back. We were pretty confident what number he was going to be. So we did that. And before I even got in, we had already done the shoot with some of the photos and stuff that we were going to put out with the social media and stuff once it happened. And so by the time he began his interview and it became very clear that he was going to be there or be going to Miami, we immediately flipped the site with the back of one of our guys actually wearing a Messi jersey with the back of it, and had them available online like that, customized and ready to rock and roll, along with pushing out, of course, on social that we had them and everything. And so we were quite literally, as far as I know, the very first soccer store, very first retailer that had Messi jerseys like that. And thankfully we had got ahead of the game, because that's really the only reason we were able to do that. As a result, you know, FC Dallas was the first away game that he had, I believe is what it was. And so we were thinking in the back of our minds early on, thinking, well, if they come and play here in Leagues Cup, then you know, we'll be able to move a lot of jerseys during the game. Well, we sold out of the jerseys within a few weeks, and so we didn't even have jerseys when he showed up to when he showed up to the stadium.
No, that's super interesting, right? I'm sure that did you imagine it's going to be as big as it was when you were planning it out, especially on the day that you decided, you know what, let's go and print it out? Did you think that this is going to be big, or it was all as much as you hoped for?
No, I would have probably imagined that we would have had a few jerseys left by the time Messi showed up, because it was really, I think, maybe a month, if that. I don't even know if it was that far. I can't remember now the time frame, but it wasn't very long after his announcement that he played his first away game there in Frisco. And so I knew it was going to be big. I didn't have any concerns once he announced. I knew we were going to get rid of our jerseys. It probably moved a little faster than I would have predicted, but it definitely it was a moment that I felt was key, that we had to be there for. And that's kind of my thinking when I was doing some of that stuff with Soccer 90, especially because we're handling not just FC Dallas, but we're handling, you know, a lot of times other clubs' merchandise and things like that. And so we want to be prepared and be in the moment and be ready and kind of think ahead and think, okay, if this were to happen, another example, and we hadn't really talked about this before, but another example for that would be when Dortmund went to Champions League last year, I believe it was, and played. Didn't win, but they went, and we got all kinds of eyeballs on our Dortmund merchandise. And those are things that, and sold a ton of jerseys during that period. And those are moments that, you know, we have to kind of position ourselves for. So how we would do that typically is, one, prepare the site, make sure the site visually has that merchandise front and center. And then secondly, be prepared to do a kind of quick campaign if we had to. I mean, we knew kind of what we needed to do, for example, for Messi, but we weren't going to go out there and make a Messi jersey and wait and see. You know, we had to do that in the moment. And so a lot of that takes a lot of strategic planning in advance.
No, I think as you said, it's all about capturing the right moment.
Hmm.
I think when you identify the opportunity, you should be in a best position yourself so that you can grab it.
Hmm.
I think that's really amazing. And probably taking a step back here, right? So I would love to hear about how you got into this journey of e-commerce, retail, merchandising, and all the way into sports,
Hmm.
especially because that's a whole niche in itself. So
Yes.
being here is, I'm pretty sure you have a very interesting journey. I would love to learn like how this whole thing started and how you ended up here.
Okay. My way to the sports world, and e-commerce and marketing, for that matter, is very unorthodox. I'm not going to say that I recommend it, but it's just a completely different way. And the way I got there, my wife, coincidentally, is in marketing, a VP, vice president of marketing, and she took the traditional route, and I messed around over here and somehow ended up doing the same thing. But um, it really started about 20 years ago when I just kind of started taking an interest in marketing and reading and getting involved. I was always curious about that world. That led into e-commerce, that led into branding and some of those things. And I was always just teaching myself, really learning. I read a lot of early in the early days, like Seth Godin. He's a marketing kind of
Yeah.
guru that's been around forever. He's one that really got me interested in that world. And so I would dabble in things and do testing on things. And even though I wasn't really selling anything, I just kind of play around with the social media and things like that. And I worked in a completely different industry, logistics, and didn't do anything in the marketing world on that end. But long story short, kind of got an opportunity through some things that had kind of taken place in the logistics world and my particular job and how things had turned out with the startup, that I kind of was able to sit back and think, okay, well, if I really want to uh, do this, and where, and I love sports, and I love that world, and my dream was to work for a sports team and uh, maybe even one day run one. I've always kind of thought that would be cool, but my thought process there was, I'm just going to try and get in ground level, work my way into something like that. And I went in on the merchandise side because I was familiar with retail. Um, and so, long story short, FC Dallas gave me the opportunity. When I came in, there was no e-commerce on the fan shop side or with the Soccer 90 store, which was actually pretty brand new. It had only been around a year, and their traffic and their marketing, all of that was very, very slow, we'll just say. There wasn't a whole lot going on there. And I was able to kind of take in there and grab that and opportunity and build that. We built out their e-commerce platforms, both for Soccer 90 and for the fan shop, FC Dallas fan shop. There were some limitations that we have with the fan shop side, but we were able to turn that into something that made at least a little bit of income and revenue for the company. And then also with the Soccer 90 piece, we had a brand sitting there that I felt like had a huge opportunity, just wasn't really being tapped into. And so we had to begin to build that identity and market the store better and the thing. And within a few weeks of me starting, COVID hit. Um, as far as starting with that
That's the
position,
whole
with that
journey, right?
particular position, I'd started out with the merchandise in general, but then as I began to create that position that didn't exist before, that's COVID hit, and so I had a lot of hurdles right off the bat. But again, we had to be agile. We had to start thinking strategically. We realized that most of our sales now are going to come from online versus
Mm.
getting people in the store. And so we had to deal with that. And so we were able to slowly build that up into a situation where we're year over the last 3 years, we've we were breaking records with huge percentages of growth and getting all kinds of eyeballs on the store, on the brand. And it's been a great experience. It was a great experience, and it's been able to propel me into some of the stuff I'm doing now.
No, that's cool. So I'm just super curious, right? Because you built something literally ground up. It's as good
Yes.
as equal to that. Do you think when I say you, not you, but necessarily the whole business, would have been able to handle a situation like Messi's launch by the time you joined? Like where did you have the systems ready? Did you have the people? Did you have the setup ready? Like how was it when you started? If you can give us an
When we started, would we have
yeah.
been able to handle that? No.
Uh,
for one, we weren't bringing in the merchandise needed for something like that.
Hmm.
We were very, very selective. It needed to be because it was brand new on what was coming in, and so the ability to react in real time, whether it's Messi or the Champions League, who's playing in the Champions League. Now, typically, they're in a situation now that whoever's playing the Champions League finals, whoever's playing in whoever's going to win the Premier League, whoever's going to win Serie, typically that merchandise is there in the store. They're ready, they're present, they're there now. That was not the case in 2019, 2020. And so that had to be something that we continued to build for and continued to bring in other teams and merchandise occasionally. It's not always, I'm not going to act like it's always been a success. There's been certain teams that we just struggle to move their merchandise for whatever reason. But overall, that was the biggest thing was putting us in that position. No, we would not have been able to react to Messi signing in 2020 if it had happened. We'd have been on the outside looking in for sure, for sure. And even if we hadn't had that opportunity, to buy the extra jerseys that we brought in, we would have been in 23 when he came in. At least we would have had something. It's similar to the situation with Son this year with LAFC. So there was no anticipation there that Son was going to be signing with LAFC 6 months ago, or with any MLS team for that matter, I think. And so that's a harder thing to predict, right? That's a harder thing to be ready for. While LAFC is a top club that is carried in the store, the idea that we would bring in as many as we did, thinking Messi was going to come because maybe they'll sign somebody like Son, that wasn't going to happen. And so they were ready in the sense that they did have merchandise, and I'm aware, I wasn't there, but I'm aware that they sold out pretty quickly. But that again is a situation where they were at least in the right position because they're focusing on the top clubs, focusing on the teams that are going to move that merchandise. I guess that's the best way to put it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I wanted to kind of, I'm like super interested is you have kind of built this fundamentally in the sports industry where it's all about the fans, right? Like basically the
Yes.
people buy the jersey, people buy the merch because because of their love for their teams, love for their favorite players, and you kind of cultivated these fans over time. Now, obviously, from starting from like probably in its early stages, now Soccer 90 as a brand has its own fans, right? Like people might obviously love their team and players, but they still love what Soccer 90 stands for
Mm-hmm.
as a site, as an apparel store. So it's more than just a store where I can just buy whatever I need. It's now a place where I love, but particularly you have created your own fan following, right? And I'm sure that journey is something that you have cultivated over time. Is that something you think brands could do strategically, or is it all about just ship the right product, be good to your customers, or are there moments where you kind of go above and beyond? Are there opportunities that you're gone where you can say, hey, you know what, this customer, I love him, I want to do something for him, or this is my VIP audience, I can do something for her very specifically? Or are there moments like that? Because that's something that we would love to hear.
Yeah. Obviously, what I'm going to say, the little things, but they're really not the little things. They're really key and critical. You've got to do those things, shipping things out on time, taking care of orders, whatever it is that you're handling, having a clean store. Those sorts of things are all critical in getting people to come back, right? But if you're talking about now beginning to build, as you said, fans or followers of the store that think, hey, I want to go there first, or I want a jersey, or I want soccer cleats, because they do sell some of those, whatever it may be, and to get front of mind of them, because they're not shopping every day. But when they start to think, hey, I want this, do they go to Soccer 90? And they begin to become almost brand ambassadors. I think there's obviously there should be a lot more of a strategic approach to that in building those particular fans, those particular customers. And there are certain things that can be done, and a lot of it honestly just comes down to customer service. It's huge, especially when you're smaller. Soccer 90, in my mind, in those first couple of years, especially through COVID and things like that, all the way through 21, 22, 22 was an okay year, but then from then it just grew exponentially. And those first few years, though, I think were critical in building up some of those hardcore fans, hardcore customers that we have. Those people who will go out there on social media, and say, when they see someone saying, "Hey, where can I get this jersey?" They link to you, or they say, "Hey, this is where I," or they just take a picture of the jersey or their merchandise that they just got, and they're really pleased with it, and they give you a shout out, and they begin to tell their friends and things like that. That was something we weren't seeing early on, and in fact, foot traffic was really, really bad those first few years. We would get a lot of foot traffic when there was a match within Toyota Stadium.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had built-in people that were walking in the door, but a lot of people locally didn't know who they were or whatever. And I still think there's a lot of growth there that could be made there with that particular brand. But the last couple of years, you saw that growth, and some of the examples of that would be early on. Some of the things that I know that we did, we would have a customer who ordered something, thought they were going to be at a match, and just pick it up. They didn't want it shipped. And one example that I have, and this was during COVID, and she happened to be a huge FC Dallas fan. In fact, I think a season ticket member, and she wasn't able to make it to the game. And then the next game she was going to get to was going to be a few months down the road. She had all this merchandise for her kid's birthday, something like that. And I looked it up, I saw the address, and it happened to be just a few blocks from my house. And so I just shot her an email and said, "Hey, I'll just bring it to your house if you don't mind." And so that's what I did. And she lived down in Arlington, and where I live, and of course the stadium was a good 45 minutes away. So there's little things like that, but from then she became a big supporter. And we had other situations where maybe we initially kind of screwed something up, but we go back, we take care of it, and go above and beyond what they even expected on the tape and being able to take care of. And they get out there and really push the brand from that point forward, and continue to shop with Soccer 90.
Yeah, I think those are the stories that don't really come out usually, right? Like people love to buy from people, and when you have these moments, as you said,
Mhm.
I think be it a moment where that there was an issue that you're addressing, or there is something that you are purposefully going above and beyond. No matter what you're doing here, I think you're kind of humanizing your own brand. You're kind of letting the customer add a personality. That, you know what, these guys sell merchandise of my favorite teams, but at the same time, they are people. They really understand people, and they go above and beyond to make sure that they are happy, they are served of their needs. And I think that level of closeness, I think that's where the loyalty, kind of, I don't know, it kind of multiplies in a big way,
Yes.
right? Your regular fans kind of become your super fans,
Yes.
and obviously I love the word. We have our own company is named after that, because we truly believe that going above and beyond wherever there are moments and seizing those moments are super important. And I think those are the stories that really need to be pushed out, and so glad that you're able to share that with us. Nice. And one of the other thing that I would love to learn is, you just mentioned early in the pod that you are not with FC Dallas and Soccer 90 anymore. You are already started your own business,
Mhm.
and the most interesting thing about that is, I think you mentioned you already had a customer before you even started your business, right? You were just contemplating it, and then you landed
Yes.
your
Yes.
customer, and you're still building out your business. Like how is that going? Like, what's your business about? Who's your customer, and how what's the whole plan for you?
Well, I mean, the best way to explain what I'll be doing is I'll essentially be doing the same thing,
Mhm.
but I'm doing it independently. So the uh, the premise for it is really is going to be kind of an e-commerce marketing and branding piece, but focusing primarily on your merchandise sales, your merchandise marketing, your merchandise uh, e-commerce platform. How can you improve those things and begin to move more merchandise, generate more revenue from that? And so taking that experience from FC Dallas and from Soccer 90 as well. And I'm wanting to kind of turn that into more of a focus in helping other sports teams that might be smaller. I don't mean that to be derogatory, but they
Mhm.
have smaller budgets, they have smaller fan bases even, and they perhaps just don't have the ability to handle the e-commerce side of the business and marketing of their merchandise that they normally would a larger club would have. That's where I can come in and help. And so that's really where I'm tailoring it. I've already kind of spoken to a couple different ones that um, are interested. But what's funny is that I was kind of already kind of building this and in the idea phase and building out my platform and how I wanted to start the business on the side. And then I kind of had somebody that fell in my lap, and it happened to be a ranch. And I'm open to all businesses that sell merchandise, right? So anybody that has an e-commerce platform, I'm going to be willing to take on and help, not just the sports industry, but that's what I'm familiar with. And this particular business was cattle company that wants to do direct to customer subscription based meat, selling meat, and that's a big industry right now. And he has a ranch, he has the cattle, he has the he has the know-how, except for how do I build a website, how do I build a brand, how do I market my merchandise. And so he reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in doing something. I said, well, hey, good timing, because I'm wanting to do this. And so long story short, he's my first client, and for quite a while, and because we're starting from scratch with him. And so we're building his brand, we're building his marketing piece on how he's going to merchandise or market that merchandise that is his meat. And he's continuing working on the operations side and on that end while I work on that side of things. And so that's really my first client. So long story short, he came in, which is great. And by the way, that's Culbertson Cattle Company is the company, and we're launching hopefully within the next few weeks. That's the plan, and getting him off the ground where he had been tinkering with things for a good year plus. Within a couple of months, we're going to be ready to rock and roll with him, and so that's pretty cool. And that's the sort of thing that I just love doing, building things from scratch, especially with that. I can take on any of that, but that's what I'm looking at. And so with my company, which is Stansion Studio, I am wanting to begin to help other companies, businesses that are struggling with that. But specifically, I'm going to gear a lot of my efforts towards sports teams. So like minor league teams, soccer's growing like crazy in the United States right now, especially in this area. You have a lot of teams like Texoma FC, Atletico Dallas, some of the other USL and even lower league than that, teams that are popping up all over the place. They all have merchandise. They all have fans. They all have things that they're wanting to do to reach out to their fans and get their brand and their merchandise out there more. And if I can help in any way like that, that's really what I'm aiming for.
No, that's great. I think I'm pretty sure you're going to land some of the biggest clubs
Well,
in
we'll
this
see.
region.
We'll see.
And
I'm hoping.
yeah, I think one thing I love about your whole journey is it's very clear that you're a builder, right? So I can
Yeah,
see that.
that's my whole thing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can see that you're pursuing, your biggest ambition is to kind of grow these clubs, especially the merchandising side, kind of from 0 to 1 or even 0 to 100.
Mhm.
That's where your skill set comes in, and that's where your passion lies. And I'm pretty sure that you'd be able to do a great job for all of them who work with you. Awesome. I think that's about it, like what we have in the pod today. And really appreciate you taking the time to
Yeah,
sharing
thank
these
you.
amazing stories with us. I think these are some things that people don't tend to hear, and you taking that extra effort to drive all the way up, from Arlington to
Oh, it's
here.
okay. I drive all over DFW, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think DFW is a place where you have to drive to go to places.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Yes. So, but yes, I mean, really appreciate the effort. Really appreciate you taking the time, and love the story. And these are some things that people don't get to hear. And this is what we want our pod to be as well. Like it's about the whole drop culture. What happens behind these launches? What happens behind these loyalty moves in brands? And so glad that you get to be the first guest, and we are so privileged by that. And there is definitely more that we want to do to the audience in the coming weeks, but I hope that it's gonna be great, and we have big plans on what we want to do in the pod, and love to have you here.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.